Dev containers are a powerful tool that enable you to spend less time configuring and more time actually coding. But are you leveraging dev containers to their full potential? In this video, we'll go over how pre-built container images can get you working in a fully configured development environment even faster. Dev containers work by building a container that has everything your app needs to run. Once you have all your dependencies configured, you'll build your container, then rebuild it anytime you add new dependencies. Depending on how complex your dev container is, that build process might take a while. Now, if you're not rebuilding often, you probably won't mind waiting for the build process to complete. But if you find yourself constantly needing to rebuild on different machines, or your team members all want to build your dev container on their machines, then pre-built images can save you a lot of time. I'm going to show you how it only takes a couple of steps to pre-build your image so you can make the build faster for everyone, every time. Leveraging the quick speed of a pre-built image is as simple as referencing it in your devcontainer.json, Docker file, or Docker Compose file. In fact, if you've ever used the try a dev container sample command in VS Code via the dev containers extension, then you've used a pre-built image already. These samples each leverage the dev containers defined in the devcontainers/images repo. Before we get started with the demo, you may have heard about GitHub Codespaces prebuilds and are wondering if we'll be covering that. Pre-built codespaces are incredibly handy, and you can head to this link to learn more. But for this video, we'll be focusing on pre-built container images specifically. Now let's dive into an example of a real-world scenario that uses pre-built images, and then we'll go over how you can pre-build your own image in just a couple of steps. We're going to look at this Kubernetes-devcontainer repo that Craig Peters, a PM over at GitHub, created. This is a fork of the main Kubernetes repo and contributes a pre-built dev container that you can use in the main Kubernetes repo or any other forks. Let's head over to VS Code where I've cloned this repo. The end user devcontainer.json file is located in the .devcontainer folder in this repo. It's here that we reference this pre-built image through the image property by specifying its image URL. As a reminder, this end user devcontainer.json is where you'll place any project or user specific configurations. There are a few other properties set in this JSON file, like onCreateCommand and other ports attributes, but the majority of the configuration and dependencies that will be available to you when running the dev container comes from simply referencing the pre-built image. Now moving to the .github/.devcontainer folder, this is where the pre-built image is actually defined. In this devcontainer.json, there's a lot more configuration than the end user devcontainer.json that we just saw. It leverages features to configure its dependencies. We'll dive into features more in a separate video, but what you need to know is that features are used to add dependencies in a clear, easily packaged way. For example, in this dev container, we can see that the Go feature is referenced. This will then install Go in the dev container with just this quick reference to the feature. Once this image is built, all these dependencies and configurations will be bundled up into a nicely packaged pre-built image. When a user references this pre-built image in their end user dev container, they won't need to wait for the build to complete because it's already been built for them. Now at some point, there will probably be some universal configuration changes that require a rebuild of the dev container. How can I make sure that anyone who references this pre-built image has that latest build? The easiest way is to automate pre-building your image by scheduling a build through a DevOps or continuous integration service like GitHub Actions. Anytime a change is made to the dev container, this repo currently uses a GitHub action to build the image and push it to the GitHub container registry. If we look at the packages of the repo, we can see the latest pre-built image with its image URL. And if we head over to the Actions tab, we can see that the most recent successful run of this action took about 11 minutes to build and push the image, which would be kind of a long time if we each individually had to build this image. But instead, with a simple reference to this pre-built image, let's see how quickly I can get my dev container all set up. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit for you so you're not just sitting here twiddling your thumbs, but I have added a stopwatch so you can see how long it took. And it took less than a minute to spin up my dev container. If we didn't have the pre-built image, we'd still be waiting 11 more minutes. Alright, so we've explored this repo with a pre-built image already configured and ready to be referenced. Now, let's take a step back. Let's say you have a project that uses a dev container and you want to pre-build your image, perhaps so that all your teammates can reference it simply and quickly. How can you actually pre-build your image? All it takes is a couple of quick steps. Once you have your dev container configured, you're ready to start the pre-build process. In your terminal, first you will need to install the dev container CLI with the command npm install-g at devcontainer/CLI. Then you will run the command to build your image and push it to a container registry. I'll be using the GitHub container registry, which I'm already authenticated with. You can also include dev container configuration and feature metadata in pre-built images via image labels. This makes the image self-contained since these settings are automatically picked up when the image is referenced. We'll link to those docs in the description, but the cool thing is that this metadata label is automatically added when you pre-build using the dev container CLI and includes settings from the devcontainer.json and any referenced dev container features. Once the command finishes running, you're all set. And as a note, remember that you can control the visibility of the image that you publish, so this is great for things like managing access for an image only to your team, for example. From here, you can then set up continuous integration to automate pre-building your image. Check out these links for the GitHub action or Azure DevOps tasks that will get you set up with continuous integration in no time. In this video, we've learned how pre-built container images can enable you to get the most out of your dev container, from faster container startup to simpler configuration. We've seen how pre-built images are used in real-world repos, like the Kubernetes repo, and we've gone over the process of publishing your own pre-built image in just a few steps. Pre-building your image is absolutely something you should be doing if you find yourself constantly needing to rebuild your container, as you can simply pull an already built dev container instead of having to wait for the build process to complete every time you're on a new machine. If you want to learn even more about the magic of dev containers, containers.dev is the hub for everything dev containers related. And make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on our other videos exploring dev container concepts. Happy coding!